Chris and Sean, you're underneath the finance director's report, which is gonna be after Bob's report and the superintendent's, presentation. So it may be a little while, so if you wanted to go do something for a little while, for a bit, you can come back. Or you can stay, you're more than welcome to stay.
Okay, everything is running.
Todd, do we know where Melissa is? She hasn't come on yet.
She said she got the numbers through the text I just sent her. I'll double check.
Yeah, she's just not on.
Last time she said she was having trouble connecting. I remember.
Says she's trying to get in.
Okay.
So we have 3 Zoom meetings tonight. I have to be on 2 of them, and one's at between 7:30 and 7:45. Do you think we'll be okay?
Well, I'll start the meeting. If Melanie doesn't come on, I'll move you up to her spot. All right?
Sean knows what's going on.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start us up now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 19th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Our first order of business is called to order. Candace, please.
Candace Bouchard.
Todd Archulowski.
Melissa will be coming on.
Bob Geiger.
Candy Perez.
Sheila Sedlak.
Sheila Sedlak for the record.
Jack Bork.
Steven Sedlak.
Linda Grappo.
Okay, thank you. Please join us for a pledge of allegiance. You ready?
Yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to me. Okay, okay, here comes Melissa and Melanie, so there we go. Next thing is agenda review, number 3, anybody?
Sure. Are we gonna, I see the 3 items that I asked to be added, 2 weeks ago weren't added this week.
Which ones?
So, about Sue Grossman Greenway update, poles on the green,
You said,
poles on Main Street.
yep, that you were
I
waiting,
said not,
yeah, you had postponed them for the first meeting in January to this one? Do you want those on?
this one, yeah. Because Bob wasn't, sure.
So, yes, you want to add those? Candace, you want to add
Yes,
those?
please.
Okay, so you have to do one at a time, make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to add an update for the Sue Grossman Greenway from the October 5th meeting.
Is there a second, please? Jack, thank you.
I'll second.
Jack did. All in favor? Unanimous? All right, what's the next one, Candace?
To make a motion to get an update on the poles that was taken down on Main Street.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Unanimous? And what's the third one?
I'm not sure right now. Sorry, I forgot
Right.
it.
Well, okay, so next time, just, send it to me again before the February meeting. All right.
Got it.
And when we get down to the bottom, because I don't have a pen to write it down, underneath 11, I'll make sure I do that.
Got it. B and C, got
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so for the agenda review, the other thing I'd like to do is move the auditor's finance director's report, auditor's review to number 6 above the town manager's report. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So number 4 is the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on January 4th. May I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Candace. Is there a second? Thank you, Todd. Any corrections, additions, or anything for Sheila? Seeing none, all in favor? Any abstentions or anything? I don't think so. Okay, unanimous. Sheila?
Who put the motion on the floor?
Who was the motion from? I was moving. Candace, were you the motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
And the second was Todd? Yeah, okay. Sheila was just double checking. I just was moving fast. Because Sheila and I are in the big room, we're echoing. Okay, so number 5 is our superintendent, Melanie Brady Shanley, asked to speak for a few minutes with us. So Melanie?
Hey, how are you? Excuse me, how is everybody tonight? Thank you for having me this evening. As I always do in January, I do want to kind of give you an update on our school budget and where we're at in the process. Right now, what we are doing is Nancy and I have met with our Board of Ed for our first budget workshop. We actually did a follow-up to that during our Board of Education meeting. So during the first budget, we had prepared several scenarios for them based upon where we're at with COVID, based upon where we're at academically and what the needs of the students are going forward. So that being said, we know that we're in a position where we are going to be seeking additional funds to be able to support education within the town of Winchester. So I do want to give you an update kind of on our projections of revenue sources. You may or may not be aware that this is our 5th and final year of Commissioners Network funding, which is legislative. So we know that there will not be an extension on those grant amounts. Right now, with the extension, with the reduction of the tuition, the amount that we get from Commissioners Network, which is $450,000, we're also expecting a decrease in our carryover grant amount for the usage that we've had on it, and a slight decrease in other state and local grants by about $12,000. So altogether, we're looking at a decrease in revenue of 2.4%, which equates to $578,000, $451. Also, I just want to be clear with everyone that over the course of the past 3 years, fiscal year 20, we were around $24 million in terms of financing. Fiscal year 21, we were at $23,097, and we're projecting for fiscal year 22 to be about $22,519,000. So we're seeing over the past, 3 years a decrease in budget revenue of about $1.6 million, and we've been able to sustain that. But as I've said leading up to this year, that it's no longer sustainable to continue to do that. It will definitely affect programming. If allowed to be that way, it will affect staffing, and it will definitely impact children. So I just want people to be clear on that. One thing we are anticipating is our enrollment to stay steady. We are actually looking at potential increases because we have a significant number of families, about 30 of them, that are on home instruction this year, meaning they've disenrolled because of COVID and are doing homeschooling this year. So we will expect those families to most likely be coming back. Right now, what the board has challenged me with is to be able to get our percent of increase to be, as low as possible, while still being responsible to what education needs to be within the town, so that we can maintain the great programming that we have established thus far. So I expect that probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I will have a pretty clear number on where we stand in terms of what percent increase we will be seeking for the Board of Education. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
I just have a quick question. Is this pre-K to 21, or is this just the pre-K to 6 and special ed?
Made a small assumption on the pre-K to 21 side at a 1% 1% rate for Gilbert. However, I anticipate that 1% is probably not going to suffice. So I would anticipate that the number would go up to 21 from where we stand right now.
So this is for 21-22, not current year.
This is not current year. This is starting for July 1 of 21.
Well, Bruce has started to put together the budget calendar. It's the same calendar we always use where there'll be a hearing for you.
Yep.
So I talked to Bruce about it last week about us taking a look at it before we go public with it, because your date, I might move it not backwards in the calendar, but ahead in the calendar a little bit.
Okay. And I'm willing to accommodate whatever we
Right.
can to support education.
Well, just
within the
because
town.
there's always this back and forth thing, and sometimes I've just felt that we've been a little early with you recently.
Okay.
So maybe we'll take a look at the calendar, and when we propose it, we'll all have a think on it. You know, so maybe
And I
not,
do anticipate that Gilbert will probably provide me with their budget number. I would say usually it's about the 1st of March, during
Right.
that first week in March.
Yeah.
So I do anticipate receiving that at that point. I do know that there is a significant amount of capital improvements that Gilbert is seeking to input into this budget this school year. So I'm not sure quite yet what that impact that will have on the overall budget ask.
right, so we also have the state, the state legislature that's doing their thing too. That will probably push us, deeper into the budget cycle, unlike, last year or the year before, so. But everybody just stays in touch like we are, we'll be fine.
Absolutely. And one other thing just to know, I'm always seeking additional grant funding. I did just secure another $156,000 technology grant. So that's obviously, helping us a bit for this upcoming school year. And I'm seeking additional funds to be able to support our interventionist and kindergarten positions, which will hopefully be approved and will lessen the amount of the ask. But, kind of painting a really bleak picture for you right now, because I want you to be prepared for the worst case scenario.
We're prepared.
And hopefully that I can, bring it about in a way that'll be more positive.
Right, well, last year, when you presented your budget, I knew that you couldn't sustain where you were, that you would be coming forward with, additional requests. So, not surprised.
All right. I appreciate you guys taking the time to allow me to present tonight. And again, if you have any questions along the way, I'm happy to answer them.
Anyone else?
Melanie,
Yes?
you anticipate staying at the Catholic school throughout next year, correct?
Right now we are, because COVID, teachers are not going to be getting vaccinated anytime soon, and students actually under the age of 16 will not be getting vaccinated. So we know that going into next year, there's still going to be a need for social distance, especially with our youngsters. And we actually have a percentage of our staff members that are unable to be vaccinated due to compromised health situations. So it is definitely going to be a necessity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We will move on to our audit review with King and Associates. Bruce, do you want to introduce anything, or do you want them just to go right on?
Yes, I'm happy to introduce Chris King, who is the partner with King and Associates, and his manager on our audit, Sean O'Grady. They are prepared to give you a summary of the audit or the results that appeared in the fiscal 20 comprehensive annual financial report, which was filed by the due date of December 31 with the Office of Policy and Management, as well as the state and federal single audits that are associated with that audit. So, Chris, if you want to, I think Chris has a PowerPoint. I'm not sure who's driving that, whether that's Sean or Chris, but they would like to be able to share their screen.
Yeah, if I could share my screen, I've got it.
I don't think I'm preventing you, but if I am, I'll make whatever adjustment I need to make over here.
Okay, it says host disabled participant screen share.
Let me see if I could find where that is. Multiple participants. Let's see, advance, one participant. Okay, just a second. You can start sharing. Okay. All right, give it a try now.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep, it's working.
Okay, good.
All right, everybody see it?
Yes.
All right, I can, I'll kick it off here. So as Bruce mentioned, you have the core financial audit. You also have a state single audit, because you have more than $300,000 of state funds every year. And you have a federal single audit pretty much every year, and the threshold for that is $750,000 of federal funds spent in any given year. You also have another component that we perform that not many people know about. It's with the Board of Education, and it's dictated by the State Department of Education. It's a testing of the information reporting system that the board uploads all their financial and demographic data into the State Department of Education system every year, and they use that to help determine the formula grants. And so they have specified procedures that we do every year. Generally, only us and the Board of Ed know about it, but it is part of the audit process. And this year they actually added, at the last moment, quite a bit of extra work to be done. So anyway, that's complete as well. So what we've been doing for the past almost a year now is doing these summary slides. We have them indexed into the pages of the audit report. We send them in, so you can request them from Bruce. He can send it to you if you want to have it afterwards. But so this starts as page 21 of the audit, which shows all your governmental funds. It shows the general fund with a fund balance of $9.1 million. Some of that is already, the technical word is assigned or committed for certain purposes. So the portion that's unassigned and available is the $7.184 million. And I have listed here kind of a different metric. A lot of time we talk about the bond rating agencies like to see 12 to 15% of your expenditures in fund balance. The Government Finance Officers Association has their own metric. They do it slightly different. 2 months of annual revenues, which is 16.67% of your revenues. And your unassigned fund balance is currently about 20%. So no matter which metric you were to compare yourself to, you are in a favorable position. Then in page 25, the water and sewer has their own sets of financial statements. There's only 2 payments remaining on debt that they have. Well, on the bonds, on the GO bonds. The clean water funds, those typically when they're entered into, they're a longer term, 30 to 40 years, whereas bonds are typically only 20 years. So your bonds will be paid off, barring any new borrowing in the water and sewer, by the end of fiscal 22. Clean water funds extend through fiscal 27. And they both have large depreciation charges every year because of the significant infrastructure. But if you do back that out, they both had positive changes in net position. You can see 600 for water and 400, more than 400 for sewer. So the water and sewer companies have been in a positive trend the past several years. On the next bullet item, these are the funds that the town holds as fiduciary agents for other people, or scholarship funds, they're the student activity funds, trust funds, There's a new GASB standard, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So almost every year, one or two of them need to be implemented. Next year, we'll be doing 84. It will be required, and there'll be a name change. So what we used to call agency funds, again, often student activity funds at the schools, are now going to be custodial funds. Bonds, building bonds, driveway bonds, zoning bonds, used to be in a separate fund. They'll actually roll into the general fund now, but won't impact fund balance because it'll be in addition to cash and an offsetting liability, so zero impact on fund balance. Just as a point of reference, GASB's already up to Statement 93, so there are always more that are in the pipeline. Some of them are very narrow for public-private partnerships or conduit debt, and they don't apply to everybody, but about 1 out of every 3 or 4 applies to somebody. And then on page 41, the fixed assets, the fixed asset additions, you can see where that the additions are from bridge projects, bridge and culverts, and then salt shed and some new vehicles. Page 44 of the notes, detail of your long-term debt, general obligation bonds. So these are not the water and sewer. These are other than water and sewer, just the general town bonds. You have your regularly scheduled pay down of $420,000 in your capital leases for equipment. You have your pay down. Now, other than your loan type liabilities and traditional debt, you also have personnel related liabilities, and these are usually related to retirement benefits, and they will change based on the participants, but also based on when the actuaries make a change into the input values that they use. So here you have had changes in your NPL, your net pension liability, because they've updated the mortality tables and the investment rate of return that they use. And then OPEB is retiree health insurance, and they change assumptions on that. We're actually seeing them change quite a bit across our town clients. It may be because the OPEB valuations really only kicked in maybe 3-4 years ago, and I think the actuaries may be getting a better idea of really what the input should be in measuring liabilities. So sometimes you see some rather big swings in that when they adjust the inputs. And then after that, we always have how much your pay down is, scheduled pay down on your debts going forward. Page 54 and 64, these are the certified teacher retirement plans, and they have big liabilities, but as of now, the state is paying for all those, and the town's portion is zero. So as you would have seen in prior years, there's a lot of disclosures and calculations of the town's share of the liability, but the actual liability to the town is zero. Pages 67 to 71 is the budget in greater detail. There was a budgetary surplus of $1.1 million in the current year. And we always do a measurement of the outstanding taxes receivable. You can see that on page 86. That's the tax collector schedule. Your ending taxes as a percentage, or taxes outstanding as a percentage of the current levy was 2.45%. We feel that good percentage is 2 to 8%. Anything higher than 8%, we tend to change our processes and our testing. We dig a little deeper, so you're on the good side of our, what we would say, our normal industry range. Sean, you want to talk about these single audits and the management letter?
No management letter.
Oh, that's right. The lack of management letter.
Management letter.
There was a prior year finding that you're going to talk about.
state and federal single audits, the federal for spending $750,000 of federal money, the state for spending $300,000 of state money. On page 6, in the federal single audit is the schedule of federal expenditures. You can see that 1.5 million in total was spent, of which 600,000 was for the bridges and culverts, and another 360,000 was for various food programs for the children. Page 10. Last year we had a significant deficiency over the WPCA billings. They put a plan in place and they've begun to correct it. I think COVID may have put a little slowdown on that, if I'm not wrong, right, Bruce?
Yeah, there's a little bit, but by and large, they're doing very well.
That finding's been corrected. If we go to the state single audit. Just open it. In the state single audit, you can see on page 6 and 7, 12.2 million total expenditures. A large portion of that was the ECS and the excess cost grants for education. You see, the superintendent was talking about the commissioners network. You'll see that in the state expenditure schedule, which was 1.4 million for 2020. And then we come back to GASB 84. Chris touched on it a little while ago. Essentially, the student activity funds are going to get moved up to next to the pension trust fund. They'll have their own statement of changes in that position, similar to the pension trust fund. And the escrow accounts are going to get reported in the general fund, like Chris mentioned, the asset and corresponding liability.
And on these GASB statements, for this one in particular, sometimes they require a lot of participation and cooperation with the town, but this GASB 84, I think it's just a reporting change, and I don't think the town finance department's going to have to really do anything different. We'll just put them in a different spot. Staff rotation comes up, and we just wanted to emphasize that we do continue to do that internally. We do have a decent pool of auditors that can do yellow book work, which is required for a town, and so we do rotate them. And we think that mix of continuity and new sets of eyes gives us consistency and objectivity. And in fact, that WPCA finding that we talked about was in part, at least in part, due to a new member of the team joining. And what we do is, not only do we change people, we also change our testing. We've implemented a couple, or an extra layer of testing on the school cafeteria funds, just because school cafeteria funds are often a problem when there is a problem in a school, and we've implemented that across all of our clients, not just Winchester. So that mix of people and constantly updating and revising the procedures, we believe gives us a very effective audit. And we know we've continued to add audit clients, particularly in the town area. And we get a good feeling because we'll ask for some data, and sometimes the person will say, gee, no one asked for that before, or people used to ask for that and they stopped asking. So we know that we have an effective system that we've developed, and of course we have the overlying or the underlying professional auditing standards that we have to comply with. So we blend the two together for our audits. So that brings us to the end of our slides. So I guess we'll open it up for questions. If the mayor thinks that's the best way to go, we can field some questions.
Well, what I'd like to do is have Bruce say anything, so if you guys could end the sharing of your slides, and that would bring us back to, now I'll go back to this. So Bruce, is there anything you'd like to add to this before anybody else asks any questions?
I don't think so. I mean, it's always been a pleasure to work with King and Associates. This is the 7th continuous year of their audits, and so I think we've worked quite well with each other, and the report came together very well at the end.
Bob, is there anything you want to mention about it, the audits?
No, I've been very pleased. The staff has been pleased to work with them. Everything's been very professional, very cooperative, and I think we've been very open to any questions and searches that they have. And
Well, how about
pleased to.
How about our position in general?
Well, our position in general makes me just a little nervous because I think we're in such a good position. I don't want to be a target of the state in terms of as the state continues to dig out of their hole. I get a little concerned sometimes about our fund balance and how it's perceived from the state. Since 2 years ago, they started asking for our balances, which we weren't crazy about. So I feel the state's a bit pernicious on their approach to funding with the various towns. We continue to get more and more pushback from the state and are continuing to look at more expenses that are being forced back on the towns that the state want. If you notice, they highlighted the teacher's pension, because the state's talked about that for quite a while. They'd like to see the towns take over a piece of that, which I am completely resistant to and don't think it's a good idea. But this is what's going on right now in our state, so I'm a little nervous about our position being in good shape right now.
Bruce, can you just talk a little bit about all the capital items that were charged to last year's budget? Because it looks like, if I remember from June, it looked like we overspent, but we really didn't.
Right, so you're talking about page, the additions to capital or the additional appropriation that was made right at the end of the fiscal year to capital?
Yeah, because some of the capital projects came to an end and we paid everything, correct?
Yeah, so
the money was there, the money was allocated, the money was there, but the cash had to come out this past year.
Right, so what you'll see, what we try to do is, even though there's been appropriations to capital projects, if we're not actually have started the project, for instance, we have $200,000 appropriated to the fire engine sinking fund. Well, we're not spending that. So what we do is we keep that in the treasury, and our treasurer invests that as long as she can until those funds are needed. And so what we usually do is the capital improvement fund has a receivable from the general fund, and that allows the general fund to create interest, earnings, and investment returns on the money that we've appropriated for capital in prior years, but we really haven't started the project. So some of our projects, like the Suckerbrook Bridge, takes a long time to get started, but that was one project that did finish this year, as well as the Lansing Drive Culvert. Those were significant projects, and we did get some significant assistance from the state and federal funds on those. The salt shed was completed. We are always buying some additional trucks for public works. There's usually a police vehicle at least in there, so there were some significant improvements or additions to all of the property, plant, and equipment that the town has and that town uses in order to provide services to townspeople.
Okay. Anyone else with questions? These are all on, all this stuff's online, so if anybody's watching, they could go online and see it through the townofwinchester.org and through the finance department page on the left, in case anyone is interested.
There's one point about the fund balance I'd just like to point out. When we obtained the A1 rating from Moody's in September of 2019, they were basing it off of our fiscal 18 financial statements. those financial statements showed an unassigned fund balance of $6.8 million. So just comparing that to what we have now as $7.2 million, we're not that much more than what we were when we obtained the A1 rating. So I think that speaks to the financial strength of the town, that investors would look favorably upon the town because of its spending the money in a good way according to the budget that's been approved by the electors in the town, and we are maintaining a healthy fund balance so that if we had to deal with any emergencies, we would be able to and not have to go to the lending markets.
Candace?
Yes.
When does Moody's reassess our bond rating? Would they do it yearly, or when we request bond?
When we go to for a bond issue, they will assign a rating to that bond issue. Right now, the rating is assigned to the town.
Right.
And as long as our financial position remains fairly stable the way it is now, I would not expect that the bond rating for the new issue would be significantly different from the rating that's been issued to the town.
Thank you.
Steve?
Did I understand you to say that there is no management letter?
Yeah, no management letter for 2020.
Isn't that unusual?
Yeah, it was a clean year for the town. Everybody's doing a great job.
I thought that was the message. No management letter means everything is okay.
That we know of. That they
Yeah, we
won't.
were talking about this in the office today with another person, and saying we only issue negative reports. We have no positive reports. There's no letter that says "good job." We only have bad letters.
So
But
did-
the absence of a letter is in fact a positive thing.
Yeah, I would say there's not too many that we have that don't get a letter or some sort of comment.
Thank you.
Anything else for Chris or Sean? Okay, well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sean. If any questions pop up, Bruce will ask them or Bob and get them back to us. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Sean.
So Bruce, while you're up, you want to keep going with your stuff?
Sure. So I have included in the package was the 6-month report through December 31st for the general fund. Some highlights from that report are that on the revenue side, property tax collections are at 66% of the budget compared to 65% of the budget last year. We're slightly ahead. Always like to thank the taxpayers for their timely payments. We know that economic circumstances are certainly trying and difficult compared to prior years. We appreciate their support in the timely tax payments. Total revenues are at 55% of the budget compared to 54% of the budget last year. And one fairly small state aid grant came in. The first of 3 installments on the Pequot Mohegan grant was received, a total of $16,000. Expenditures for the fund are at $15.8 million, or 46% of the budget. Last year we were at 47%. So the fund is tracking very similarly to last year, slightly under expended compared to last year, but still I don't have any concerns in any particular areas. Our cash flow for the general fund, we had $11.5 million in cash at December 31st. 7.6 million of it was invested. Our earnings rates, the market just does not reward for savings but we did have $1,000 in December interest income. As we've already learned, the audits have been completed. They were filed on time with the state, and so it's been a pretty good conclusion. I just would like to thank those in the finance department who helped, particularly Cindy Rhines, our treasurer, and Nancy O'Day-Wyrick for the Board of Ed side, and for the other staff. I think we've got a good team, and definitely everyone contributed, and I think you see it in the results that King and King just summarized.
Any questions for Bruce? Okay, thank you, Bruce. I know you hang out for a little bit, so if anything comes up, we'll come back to you. So now we'll go back to,
I think there was a question that was just posed from the public.
from the public.
Well, I just saw it show up on the screen.
Well, the only people in our current meeting
Okay.
are, I don't see anybody in here that's not on.
Maybe it was a email notification to me that showed up on my screen. That's probably what it was.
That's what it was.
I know some of the reporters went off the Zoom and are probably live streaming it. But right now I don't see anything. I don't see anything in chats or anything, Bruce, so.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, so Bob, town manager's report, please.
All right, I'll give my basic report, and then I have a year-end from Public Works, which they give me a summary at the year-end each year, and I'll relate some of that to you after my basic report. Let me just talk about last week, January the 4th through the 7th. Usually every morning I meet with the police chief, talking about updates, anything going on around town that I think everyone should be aware of. I met with Eversource regarding their payment forgiveness plan, which they've issued for during the COVID period. Tuesday, I met with Public Works regarding current repairs, next year's budget, and their personnel replacement process right now. We'll talk more about that. Wednesday, I met with the Public Works Director again regarding the civil service. We had to do some testing. We have some open positions we're trying to fill, the road foreman in particular, and we had to go through some testing. Some of the local towns have provided us assistance in helping have neutral test agents to help review the process, which is, Jim's got a great working relationship with the surrounding towns. Thursday, I met with Candace briefly regarding Main Street, some of the issues we have. We'll talk about that in a little bit here in the rest of my report. I also met with Tim Abbott and Jim Ronalds regarding a possible land grant for all the land around Crystal Lake, which has been a potential that the federal government has got some potential grants. We're trying to decide whether it's worth it or not, or what the risk is to the town. This has been going on for about a year and a half, so we just had another discussion. We're not real positive about it. It doesn't look like there's enough money for what we have to give up in the process, but we'll have one more report on that in February. I met with a publicist for American Mural Project. The American Mural Project is progressing fairly well. I've been over there twice. The mural is almost completed in terms of its structure and how it's all hung up right now, but they have to complete their mezzanines. There'll probably be another couple months in completion, but they've hired a publicist, and I've been working with them to help promote the relationship between American Mural Project and the town and the region, so there'll be a little more work being done on that. We had our normal library board meeting. The library's doing well and stayed very busy through this whole COVID process with some minor opening projects are limited in terms of public meetings. Friday, I had a site visit to Sucker Brook Road. I don't know if I've mentioned that again here, but the Sucker Brook project is basically completed right now. They've, I don't know if you get a chance to drive around there, it's pretty impressive. So we were hoping to get that finished before any major snowstorm, and they did complete that. There's really basically not much left to do except for us to try to close out the project. I also spent some time on Bonds Lane. The people who live off of Bonds Lane. That's been a problem several years before I joined the town, and continues to be a problem as we're trying to work out ways to improve the road and also the the town's possession versus individual's possession at the end of Bonds Lane. I don't know, some of you selectmen may be familiar with that project. That's been a difficult project for the town to try to improve, and we continue to try to do so. I also met Friday with the police chief again on basic updates. We've had one retirement, a couple potential retirements coming, and we've already started a selection process on replacement for a couple of them, which is a long-term process. By the time we initiate the first list through civil service, sometimes it's up to a year before we have one on the street after all the training and selection processes. I also usually meet with Public Works on Fridays to discuss the completion of the project and the summary, which I'll give you here shortly. This week, Monday, met with the police chief. I also met with Don Stein, who is the chairman of MIRA, which is the state trash collection and disposal agency. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. There are actually 3 regions. We are one of 51 towns that submit all of our trash to a particular region, a capital complex which is now just about worn out. There's a major issue on what we're going to do with our trash in the future, not just with our project, but the other 2 major facilities in the state. This year we expect our price to go up from $91 a ton to maybe close to $100 a ton. But in the next 2 years, we're going to have to start shipping all of our trash and garbage out of the state. Right now, there are major areas in New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio that are very receptive to taking our trash, but that's not going to last forever. At some point in time, we're hoping for state aid, but the state hasn't stepped up yet. The facility that we use right now, which we are part owners of, for 51 towns is going to cost $300 million to replace. Todd Archulowski knows quite a bit about it. He used to work for MIRA. The other 2 facilities are not quite as bad a shape as ours, but they're going to go down too. So basically, the towns in the state over the years have not really been replenishing the capital necessary to maintain this. So we don't have a problem right now, but the next 3 or 4 years, the problem's going to get very big, and we're going to need some help from the state to help figure this out. Don Stein, I believe, does a very good job in terms of overseeing the whole project, but there's a looming problem. And I don't think Connecticut's the only state that's got this problem. So this is a problem that we've all been, not to be facetious here, but kicking the can down the road for a long time. So I just wanted to report to you that we don't have a long-term solution right now. It's going to be an ongoing project for a number of years trying to figure this out. But it's looming to be a very bad end if we don't do something different as a state. We also met Monday night. We had a town manager search meeting. We're probably going to follow up on that again tonight in the executive session. I also met with a resident regarding blight on Brook Street. Brook Street, even though it's a short little street, continues to be a blight issue for us. There was also a Hinsdale school meeting Monday night. Tuesday, I met with the police again regarding updates around town. Through COVID, we've actually had reduced crime in many respects, but increases in some health issues in terms of police response. I met with Public Works regarding lake issues again. As you know, the lake started filling up December the 31st, and some people still don't quite believe it. They're getting a little nervous because they haven't completed their projects. We spent more time working on that today to make sure they do so. But let me just give you a summary. This is we have an annual summary at year end in terms of where we've been, because actually by the end of December, most all the projects, will come to a halt because of the weather. But let's talk about what we did for road restoration. I think you may have all noticed around town that Eversource is doing a lot of work, digging up a lot of the streets, and they're going to continue to do so all through the winter as they're replacing every gas line in town, both the major lines and to every home and every commercial facility. So you may see painted marks on the streets yet, and there's one big one behind Town Hall they're getting ready to come through. But that's going to continue to occur. But the next year we should start to improve. We can't really repave these roads until they're completed. But some of the major ones that we plan on doing early on, or the Eversource will help with this significantly, is Gay Street to Elm Street, to Chestnut, Wetmore, Oak Street from Hollibird almost to Mountain Avenue, Gilbert Avenue from Hollibird to Wallen Street, and Lovely Street from Pratt Street to Bridge Street. So there's some major ones there that the work almost completed. But some of the finished paving is being delayed now to allow some trenching to settle through the winter. Because this is done in the winter, even though they backfill it, compact it, because of the cold weather and the freezing, we don't get an even bed with which to pave. So in some cases, we're asking, instead of Eversource to subcontract this, we're asking them to pay us a fee in lieu of paving, because we're going to have to go back and dig up several streets ourselves to put in new water lines. So we're asking them to put that off and give us the money instead, which they're willing to do. And we've got 5 streets. Elm Street, from Main Street to Center Street, is one project that we're going to have to redo water lines. So we want, as soon as Eversource is done, we just want to do their patching work through the winter, and we'll take over in the spring again. So Elm Street from Main to Center, Center Street from Elm to Case, Case Avenue from Center Street to Gay Street, Greenwoods Avenue from Center to Gay Street, and Tebow Avenue from Elm Street to Greenwood. So there's some we're trying to coordinate our water work with them, but they're at different parts of the road, so we can't trench everything simultaneously. So with the fee in lieu of this, it's actually been working in town's favor, because they will actually help pay us to repave these roads, which we're going to have to dig up anyway in the spring. But let me tell you what we did. We crack sealed and chip sealed about over three miles of roads. I'll list some of the streets which people are probably aware. Chestnut Street, Kittredge Lane, Old North Road, Central Avenue, Hollibird from Whiting Street to Florence, New Street, Palmer Avenue, Standard Avenue, Wheeler Street, Millette Drive, Sunny Ridge, Monroe Place, and Manchester Heights. We repaired about 0.34 miles of total reconstruction. Of course, Overlook Road, as you all know, was a major project for us. That was over a $500,000 project. Suckerbrook Road from Westlake Boulevard to the bridge there, and the Ryan's Field Access Road, which was for years the rec department, everyone has complained it was just the best, trying to get back to the recreation over there. Let me think. Well, we just finished the Suckerbrook Culvert. I don't know if you drive by. I drove up there Sunday, and they really did a nice job. We're pleased with the way it came out. And the lake is, you can see the water running through there. And right now, it's filling up rather rapidly. We also completed the Lansing Road Bridge. We're officially still trying to close out, financial closeout, working with the state funding. Sometimes takes a couple of months. Same thing with the Suckerbrook Bridge. While complete, is still in the process of being officially closed out. We just started work with a engineering and design consultant. Improvements required for the Cason Avenue Bridge, and that's going to be coming up as our next major bridge to be replaced. We've already started the preliminary engineering. They're probably going to be public information meetings sometime, probably in, I guess, in April, May, or June. Then again, Raleigh Street Bridge is the next one. We plan on start on that construction in 2022. But we're already starting for the engineering work and working with the Connecticut Department of Transportation on the replacement engineering schedule. Of course, we still got the Whiting Street connectivity grant, and the final design of the project is almost complete, and we hope to have the construction started in this coming year, 2021. I think we finished the final design for the project for Bridge Street and Willow Street, which we had some grant money for the engineering for that. On the Sue Grossman Still River Greenway, as you may know, that project took a step back because of lack of response from the original consultants. We've now hired a new consulting firm, and they are submitting a proposal. We're going back and forth. They've submitted a major proposal now to complete the work, and we've had numerous discussions with the permitting agencies to resolve any of the issues, to minimize. We've had a lot of wetland litigation issues, and the new engineering firm is working with us on that. So we'll come up with a separate statement, and I know, Candace, you were interested in that, and we'll have a separate report with more details on that, as we just finished some discussions with that new engineering firm this week, or last week. And you may have noticed we finished that small spillway pedestrian bridge on Lake Street there. at the Highland Lake, at the Highland Spillway. So that was, there's actually two of those. One of them was in really bad shape. The second one looks like we probably won't do that for a couple of years yet. We did buy a new paving box, which Public Works will be using more next year, which will allow us to make some significant improvements. So we're looking forward to doing a lot of that work ourselves. It'll help significantly in the new dirt roads and helping us level off all the gravel. These dirt roads, we plow them in the winter, we kind of ruin the crown on the street, which messes up the drainage. We've got about 4.5 miles of dirt roads, which require not as much maintenance as a paved road, but in the springtime it requires some touch-up. So with projects coming up, just so you know, as we're getting ready now, we start doing all the work now since the winter slowed us down on other things. We need to finish our drainage repairs on Marshall Street, and we've started the engineering design for Culvert Avenue from North Main to Colony Drive, because we're going to get state funding for that. That's going to be a big deal. We hope to get close to $1 million for that. But that requires extensive engineering, as we've got to replace the drainage, water and sewer lines as well along that project. And then we're also got another section which is not included in the state funding, and that's from Culvert Avenue from Colony up to Florence. That's considered part of our project. But we need to coordinate that because we're going to be replacing the water line on the lower part of Culvert Avenue. And we're going out to bid for the Elm Street Reconstruction project. Right now, Elm Street is a mess with Eversource. We're going to be replacing all the water lines and gas lines are being done now by Eversource. So we're not ready to go out to bid yet, but that whole complex back there is going to have to be redone. You've also got the Pratt Street culvert. I don't know, I feel embarrassed. Those concrete abutments have been on Pratt Street before I started. They're still there. We had a lot of trouble with the abutting neighbor who did not want to allow us to continue the work. We've now resolved that, and we hope to complete that this spring. Let me see, the Case Avenue Bridge, I talked about this. There's a lot of engineering work going on that. And then drainage areas on several areas of West Wakefield Boulevard. We're doing a lot of the engineering design work now because there's a lot of, if you live up that way, you're aware, we've got a lot of road issues which are related to drainage, which brings me back to the point that we did pick up our new sweeper. We're doing a lot of testing around Highland Lake, clearing streets and catch basins as we work out operational issues with the equipment on how to use it. So we're going to be doing a lot more with our sweeper vacuum unit on the lake around the areas which are problems for drainage. Major capital projects, we'll talk about this with our long-range plans and committee. We've got the Elm Street Reconstruction, the Hubbard Street Reconstruction, Marshall Street Reclamation and repaving, and completion of the bridge for Taylor Brook Road on West Wakefield Boulevard, and then the bridges on Bridge Street and Willow Street intersection. But as we get our committee together, I'm sure you all have more input on what you'd like to see us focus on. But that's just the general summary of that's what for the conclusion of this year as we start the planning for the spring now. Questions, comments?
You want to finish the rest of your report?
Oh.
You left off on Wednesday. You met with Inland Wetlands, New James.
Okay. Chief updates. I'm sorry. I'm used to doing on the back. It's on a separate page here as well. Got a new printer. I met with the Inland Wetland Commission on Wednesday, and we're also talking about. We had a Zoom meeting. They're concerned about enforcement in wetlands, and my plan is to. We've written up a job description to have an enforcement position in the town for inland wetlands, planning and zoning, and blight. And we're in the process of considering adding that to our. Instead of replacing the planner position, we're going to replace that position with this enforcement officer. So quite frankly, if someone walked in tomorrow, we're ready to make a hire. We can do that. We've written a job description, and we've got enough in-house knowledge to train up that person in areas that they may not be familiar with. But I hope to separate that position from the very people who have to issue all the permits, which will make this, I think, a a little less controversial and easier for us to enforce both blight and zoning problems, and also the inland wetlands. Of course, inland wetlands is very concerned with we've had so much growth at the lake, we're constantly fighting issues in terms of enforcement of the lake on the inland wetlands. Thursday, the Northwest COG, we have our monthly meeting, the 21 towns meet, we talk about issues that are continuing for all of us. And of course, COVID's always the number one issue on how these towns are dealing with this, how we're getting state funding for excess spending. We, as a town, we spent a little money on COVID, but it hasn't been excessive. We're kind of pleased, and Bruce and I have talked about it. COVID has not cost us a lot of money, but so far so good. But the testing has also started. Our first responders have been tested. You all read the newspapers and know it's been kind of a calamity here to decide who gets tested next. I signed up today. I don't know when I'm going to be tested, but I signed up in the old people category as opposed to the town manager category.
Do you mean vaccinated versus tested?
Vaccinated, not tested, vaccinated.
Right.
So the state, we hope by next week we'll have a lot more clarity on the situation. There's still a lot of confusion. And of course, you're reading the paper, but it looks like it's getting closer. So 1B, we're starting into 1B next week, so that there's still controversy as which category of people are in 1B, but that'll be worked out by next week. I also met with a citizen issue with his landlord. We seem to have our share of citizens versus landlord issues. And I think the finance subcommittee, you all met, and I think I attended that briefly. Friday, we had a Board of Selectmen special meeting talking about the town manager and potential replacement. Monday we were closed, which was strange. I didn't realize that till Sunday night, but someone called and told me. That's where we are. Questions?
Candace?
The Board of Selectmen gave you additional funds for the tree cutting contract. Has that been completed?
Part of it has. We haven't finished the list yet. We've let some of the contracts out. There were about 7 people that bid on that. I'll have to find out exactly. Part of it was being spent on ash trees, part of it was spent on other trees. So I can't give you the detail on that because I don't know it, but I'll write that down and find out. But we'll have no trouble spending for the tree removal.
Well, I can tell you that they were taking down a tree on a road that I drive, and it was taking them a wicked long time to take it down, and I don't know if that's because a lot of cars went by and they had to stop, but if it takes them that long to take down all our trees, it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular. I don't know who that was or where that was. But I'll write that down right now for follow-up.
Another thing, we have the mowing equipment. Public Works should, include how much mowing they've done throughout the year. Since we have that new piece of equipment.
Yeah, that's in use whenever we've got a guy freed up. We didn't. I don't know how we measure how much we mow, but we can finally probably figure out how to report that. We mow a lot. But
right, I just think it's something you should capture, especially.
You're right. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Well, they could put it on Google Maps when they go out to mow and do a location finder. No, it tracks you, and it makes a map. Literally.
Okay, I haven't.
Not even kidding.
I hadn't thought about that one. Okay. I'm writing a note down to that effect.
One more thing was Whiting Street was one other thing I wanted to address. You say the drawings are, I'm confused because there were public meetings with planning and zoning regarding the street. And
right.
They're saying the drawings are almost complete. So part of those public drawings were to identify what the agreement would be to do that?
We had some citizen input, requested some changes. We tried to modify it for their request.
Got it. And will we be able to get all this work done in time before the grant's up?
Yes, we asked for the extension and they gave us that.
Okay.
We're okay.
When is it extended to, do you know?
I don't know, but in talking to Bruce and Jim, they're more than comfortable that we don't have a problem.
I have no problem with that if you got an extension. I just would like to know when the project.
We have one and I don't know what it is.
Okay. And can you post this, on the Public Works, page so that, like, as you said, a recap of the year in review, sort of, so that citizens know
Yeah,
what they've done? I think it's important.
yeah, I think it's good, because this, I mean, yeah, this is a pretty good summary. There's always, actually, this wasn't the whole thing. I gave you the kind of highlights, but there's a lot we can post.
And could you have them modified to add in the new extension date of the Whiting Mills?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Whiting Street, sorry.
Yep.
Bruce, you were gonna say something before. Do you have something? And Linda, I saw your hand.
No, I don't have anything to add. It's that, we've had that roadside mower for a number of years, but I think Candace's, comment about noting where it's been used is probably very useful. And
It's been used at least, this year we've used it in more than 50 different places, but I'll try to find out more.
I always like to justify new equipment that's purchased and
I know
why.
that would just, because it's used so,
It takes a year to start getting used to using it, obviously, and
yeah.
now it's fully in use
Because
now.
we've only got a couple guys that, we can't let anybody run that thing. It's really, you can screw it up very easily, so we have to make sure we've got people trained to know how to use it. But, yeah, I will try to figure something out.
Linda?
Yeah, I just had a question about the Eversource payment forgiveness program. Is this for the residents? And if so, how are you circulating that information?
That was what was put on, Eversource made it public in several sources, both on their website and in the newspaper. And I've gone to the senior center, because that's the best place that we seem to have the most need. I can't tell you what the results have been from that. They tried that last year, though. I don't know that the activity was low because people didn't know about it, or just didn't know how to implement it. So I need to check with Jen on that, because she was like the center for that. I'll ask her.
Well, we now have the new town Facebook page.
Right.
That, if it's still in, because there are people that, do read that and share it, or share it with their relatives who might need it. That should
One
be.
of the things we've had with it's interesting, a lot of the people that need these things the most, the older people, they don't have computers. It's been really difficult. We found a real problem there. They don't have smartphones, they don't have computers. We've been trying to get information out. We've got to find better sources for us old people.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we move on to the first round of citizens' comments. If anybody would like to call in and make a comment, 860-738-6958. There's a little speaker telephone right next to me. If you call, I will answer. So 860-738-6958. We also have another citizens' comment period coming down the agenda a little bit. It'll be the same phone number, 860-738-6958. Seeing none. Oh, somebody's calling. Make sure I get this right. Hopefully.
Exciting.
Hello?
Hello, Candy.
Yes.
John Wearda, how are you?
Good. Everybody, it's John Wearda. Go ahead, John.
I have a question on the tree trimming for Whiting Street. Has that been all completed?
Hang on, let me ask. Tree cutting on Whiting Street, is that completed, Bob?
No.
No.
Okay, because I still see trees that are laying across the river.
Trees across the river.
Or wasn't that part of the job?
Or was that not part of the job?
Well,
He's answering, hang on.
It was not part of the job, but Eversource had to come down and replace a couple of poles, so we had to wait for them to finish up. So we've still got some coordination going on with Eversource down on Whiting Street.
Bob said coordination with Eversource on Whiting Street with poles for the trees, but He's asking about the trees in the river.
Oh,
Okay.
the trees in the river. No.
No.
Oh, okay.
There are two major ones in the river, we're both aware of them. And,
Looks like nobody wants to own them.
yeah, we don't own that, but, the college is interested in it too. We all want to figure out how to get them out of there, and quite frankly, I don't think the Corps of Army Engineers cares. I think we're gonna have to make a special project and bid that separately. Not anybody could do that, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I drove by there again today, and they collect trash behind them as the river flows. Just,
Yes.
it's disgusting.
Yeah, I had
I
mentioned,
don't know, John, I'm gonna go investigate that one.
yeah, I've mentioned these trees before, John, and they're still there.
Okay. All right, that's my only question. Thank you.
I have to take
Okay.
ownership of that problem.
We'll see you, John, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, I think John's off. Anyone else? 738-6958. I was so excited to get a call. Okay, number 9 is correspondence. Is there anything anybody wants to highlight on correspondence? Steve?
I just want to take a minute or so to commend the town manager and the director of public works. I've been a party to correspondence that's been going on for about 6 months. Bob often tells us that he met with a citizen over an issue. Well, he does a lot of that. And last July, I was contacted by a former resident of the community who had an issue with the town dealing with cemetery plots at Forks View Cemetery. And it was very complicated, and it was a very emotional kind of situation to deal with. Essentially, a person was buried in a plot that this resident felt was not appropriate and was causing trauma in the family. And so when I was first contacted, I did what I should do. I gave it to Bob, and Bob gave it to Jim Rollins. And it took a lot of work over a lot of months, researching titles, and Bob, you probably know a lot more than I know about it, but
We had 4 separate meetings over that, trying to get to the source of the issue. And, but Jimmy did a lot of work. Our cemetery guy that he takes care of did a lot of work. We did a lot of research. I think they were pleased with, this started 25 years ago. It wasn't last year, so, but it was resolved with much paperwork and a lot of meetings.
yeah, and it was resolved successfully because I kept being copied on the correspondence going back and forth between the parties. And the fact that Jim especially was able to do all the research and bring it to a successful conclusion. The family was satisfied, everything was handled the way it should have been professionally, and the problem was solved. So I'd like to commend Bob and Jim for their work on that.
Yeah, thanks. You're welcome.
Next up, boards and commissions. Steve?
Okay, let's see, you had in your packet some information, and let's start from the top here. We're going to make an appointment to the Soldiers Monument Commission this evening. The motion I have is to appoint Thomas Sullivan to membership on the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to end on June of 2023.
Second.
Okay, and before we vote on it, I would just ask Jack, I think we're replacing a person on the Soldiers Monument Commission. Is that a fact? You have a resignation from a member?
We have an opening, yes.
Okay, and so I'm guessing that, can you say who the person is who was resigned?
One of our commission members, Stephen Sylvester.
Okay, and his term would expire on
June 23rd.
2023, so that would be part of the motion.
That is correct.
You got that,
Okay.
Sheila? 2023? Okay. All right, so we're gonna vote now? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge two resignations. There was in your package, there was a letter from Mark Ashalashi, and he resigned from his position on the Board of Assessment Appeals effective on today, and his term to expire in October of 2022. So when we get a new person to go on to the Board of Assessment Appeals, he or she will take Mark's place and recognize Mark for his service to the town as chairman of that commission. I know he's done that for quite a few years. We also have to acknowledge the resignation of a person that we just appointed a little while ago at our last meeting, as a matter of fact, and that is Carrie Esposito, who is not going to serve on the IWWC. We appointed her last month, but she's not able to continue, so we have to accept her resignation on that and acknowledge that there's now another opening on IWWC.
May I ask why she's resigning?
She had a very brief sentence. I think it said she's not able to do it at this time.
One of the things I'd like to talk about Mark's position on Board of Assessment Appeals. I think we all have to make a concerted effort to find somebody to take his place. The Board of Assessment Appeals is the one that, as you all know, affects the grand list. In March, around that time, especially after a new revaluation comes by, people go to that and they try to obviously reduce the assessment on their property. And it really matters who sits there in terms of expertise and the background that they have. And Mark has been on the board for a really long time as a chair. He's done an outstanding job. He has a lot of history there. And I think you all need to take a look at the Board of Assessment group right now and see how we can find somebody of Mark's strength for that. And Bob, I think you really need to help us look for that as well, please. Because I've been worried about that board with people leaving it for a couple of years now, but it seemed like we were, full at that point. But with Mark's resignation, I mean, I think it's critical that we look at that.
He recommends that someone with a real estate background or a construction home remodeling background,
Right.
as they are familiar with costs.
But we have Joel's on there, and he has a background, right? Joel's Stewart, he's on there, and I'm not sure if Mr. St. Ange is still there. He's had a lot of background, but so I just think that because of the impact it has on grand list revenue, I think it's really important that we take a look at that, okay? Or look for somebody to fill in. I mean, some people are volunteering already for lots of things that might be good in that position, but we want to make sure we get somebody else.
And just a clarification, last month we got the resignation of the chairman of the inland wetlands. Have they appointed a new chair yet?
Yes,
Who is that?
I don't recall. I
It's
was reading
Russ
the-
Davenport.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Russ Davenport.
Okay.
He's been on there for a while. We appointed him a few years ago. All right.
I'd like to thank Linda. Linda had a candidate for EDC, however, on further checking, the person is not quite eligible for membership at this time, so maybe in the future, but thank you, Linda, for doing the recruiting. That would be the report.
Okay, thank you. Now we move on to new business, and the first one, before we get to the two that Candace added, Melissa, you wanted to talk about the And you mentioned this back in, I think it was December, the beach parking, beach regulations that the Rec Director and Recreation Commission have asked you to look at and bring to us?
Yeah, I just wanted to give everybody an update and let you know what they've been working on. They've basically been working on amending 3 separate ordinances. One revolves around parking in the municipal parking lots and the regulations. One is about regulating the hours at the beaches at Highland Lake, and the other is the regulation of conduct at recreation facilities. And what I'm going to do is, for the next meeting, attach their final amendments. They've changed even since I received these. I just talked to Tanya right before this meeting. Just small minor changes, but they've been working pretty diligently, and they've met with the police chief a couple of times just to find out exactly what kind of support they would need, as far as violations and fines and towing and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to let you know that that was coming up. So just to expect that those would be in the next meeting, and maybe we would be talking about that and moving that forward.
Candace?
I don't know.
Candace?
Will they be including revisiting East End Park and the usage of it and who can use it and the process or anything like that?
Well, the three specific ones they're dealing with are really all revolving around the beaches.
Okay.
But the third one, which is conduct at recreation facilities, the section that they're most worried about are the beaches, but they do have East End Park on the tail end of that. So I think there is a few things about permits and conduct and that type of thing. But I'll attach it all, Candace. I was going to do these, but they've changed since their last meeting again. So I just wanted to.
In my conversation with Tanya about East End Park, one of the things that we might be able to do is help her out, or Bob, you can help her out. East End Park seems to be a little confusing to the recreation director, because there are certain things in past practice where the recreation director approves, and then there's past practice where the town manager approves. And it gets confusing for what people can use, who goes to who to get what permission to use the park, who's responsible for which part of the park. So that should probably be something that is, I would think, to help with the confusion, is to streamline it a little bit, and I don't know if that's something the Board of Selectmen has to.
I think you have to. I've been meeting with Tanya and members of the rec committee, and I've spoken with Melissa.
This is
separate issues. The park itself is an issue. This year particularly, we've had political protests and conduct, and who issues permits. There's some complications associated with that we really need to work out.
Right.
I understand Tanya's confusion. The police are confused. Tanya's confused. We need probably more specific regulations for all of this than we have right now.
Right.
That's my point.
And it would probably be good to put the whole, it'd probably be good for a point person to put the whole park underneath one person so that it flows from there. Because there's something about the bandstand being separate from all the other stuff. And,
Yep, it's.
yeah. But that's, so.
Yep.
Anything else, Melissa?
No, that's it. So, more to come.
All right, so 11B, I believe, Candace, you brought up the Sue Grossman Trail and you wanted an update. Bob gave a little update in his management report. What else do you want to know?
Yeah, well, the last time we met was October 5th, and that's where we, suggested switching engineering. I'd also like to hear, in more detail, have we extended the grant funding for that too? Where are we going to terminate? What is the overall plan and the timelines? When will we get new engineering drawings back? I mean, I understand that when before we switched engineering, they were modifying some elements of the
catch anything.
to get people from Torrington to
She's
Winchester
back
so
away.
that we can mesh both of our population and develop Main Street more to get those up. So it's really critically important that we know, when the next steps are and we hold the new engineering people accountable. And did we get an extension? And what is the goal? Where are we going to end?
Well, I asked Bruce, actually, we've got our engineers working on it. He's pretty good with it right now, but we've had a lot of communication with the new engineering group, and I'll try to get you timelines. And they've asked for more data, but they're working on it. This is kind of like a priority. They really want to prove to us that they can do this. So I'll try to get you specifics on. I don't think it's an extension issue, but I'll find out.
Well, it was 2016 we got the grant, so I don't
Right.
lose the grant. And
Correct.
back in October, Jim was going to reach out to them to get an extension. So I want to know what the new scope of the project is, basically. And, I'd like to have that highlighted as a separate report, whether it be monthly or bi-monthly or something, But
Yeah, well,
if we know what the timeline is, then we would know, when this is the next point, and, where we
I
go.
think you said you got a new scope. But we need a new scope report. I think that's a good
Exactly.
phrase.
Right.
Okay.
Well, January 29th, we're gonna have an infrastructure long-range planning meeting, so maybe they'll bring that information to that.
Okay.
Or their February,
So
the beginning meeting, the first meeting in February.
Right.
good idea.
Either one, they're right next to each other.
So the next item that I had was the replacement of the poles on Main Street due to the accident that occurred. Do we have any sort of timeline on that? If we,
We've asked-
contacted our insurance company to,
Eversource provided us, they've got a catalog. We can't, I think I told you, we can't do the exact replacement. We get something that are close. So they were supposed to, I thought they were supposed to give us that this week, because they're also working with the state on trying to repair the lights on Main Street that the state inadvertently interrupted the lines there. But the two poles there's two, one at the end of, it's been down for a long time. And we're actually trying to replace, I wanted to buy three. Let's go ahead and buy one extra one just to have it, so we don't have to wait this next time. So we've asked for a price for three of them. So, Bob, I'm letting Jimmy and Bart pick out the closest that match. We think we can get something that's close. So I've seen the catalog, but I don't know how soon we can get them in. But Eversource knows we want them in right away.
and as I reminded you, we want to have it with a plug for lights, for
Yes.
whatever. But, great, thank you very much. I'd like to, be kept updated on that as well.
Okay.
Are they, any progress on the other lights that are just out?
Yeah, Eversource is working out there again today. They were working on, they've had 3 trucks out in the subcontractor, so they're digging in the street again. So they said, well, we're gonna dig and see, we hope to dig this week yet. I don't know if you've noticed in the intersections, but all that blacktop area is still there.
Oh, no, what I was referring to is the lights that are out themselves, like 3 in the park and others
Oh,
on Main Street.
the onesies versus the whole string that we've got out.
Right. Because the lights on either side of the pole that was taken out, those are both out. And that has
Right.
nothing to do with the Elm to Union block.
Because, like you said, there's not 9 in a row that are out on Main Street as a result of that error in the construction. But
Right.
so we gave them a report on the onesies now. So I'm working with Bob, not Steve. Axelrod.
Axelrod, right.
Yes. So I will follow up with him. I'll continue to push him. As you know, you got to keep pushing them.
Can you get purchasing to do the follow-up for you?
Purchasing? No.
Yeah.
I can. I've really got to do it.
Okay.
I can purchasing can help me.
That's all I had. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Anyone else on any of that? If not, we're gonna go into executive session regarding the town manager search. So, let me just pull up participants, who's still on. Everybody looks like, except, is a member of the search committee. So I need a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. Second, please. Thank you, Linda. All in favor? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna unplug over here and have Sheila turn off some things. So, Sheila, you wanna turn off?
Yes, yeah.
So that's moving along right this second. I unplugged my computer from the system. Sheila is shutting